Hey guys, how are you? How are you doing? Welcome to today's video where I am asking, is it worth buying ARK 2020? You do not have the game yet and you're thinking about maybe buying it, and you have read mixed reactions to the game and mixed opinions to the game, and you want to find out, is it worth buying a game that is out for already like 5 years? And I'm here to give you my opinion as someone who plays the game since 2015. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of the game. So the game was released 2015 into early access. And that's also the point where I started playing it. In the beginning, it was just like a small dino-based survival game. It had a lot of potential, but also a lot of bugs. A lot of bugs were also fixed in the meantime. And in the end of 2015, they added the breeding mechanics, which is a big part of this channel. At that point, I was not playing anymore because my group stopped playing in 2015. So I didn't start looking back into ARK before spring 2016. I didn't want to play alone, and therefore I just looked into it later. And in spring 2016, I started breeding experiments in ARK and I was hooked. And that was also like the longest break I took from the game since then. You have to imagine now the 2016 game was 5 FPS, a lot of bugs, a lot of crashes. It had very few game mechanics that we know now. But that was not important because the game concept was unknown to us. We didn't know what it was all about and we had to learn everything. Having a wood shack on the beach was already something that showed that you acquired a certain kind of knowledge into the game, and it also meant that you made it into the game. So you can now imagine how far people got into the game back then. But the game has grown over time and new dinos get added, and so has the player base. People got more and more knowledgeable, and the expectation to a player these days is way higher than it was back then. And even I started over a lot of times just to get to know new game mechanics and also just to improve myself. Today the game is probably in one of the best stages that it has ever been. It is very advanced, has a lot of content. It even has a storyline now that you can follow if you are not that type of player who just goes into a game and starts playing, but who needs a little bit of like a red guiding line. You also now have Genesis that added missions, which is a little bit like quests, in order for you to spend your time with something else that is just farming, breeding, taming, and whatever. If we compare the game back then and the game to now, and I say the game now is in the best state ever, you can now of course say, yeah, but the game also got more expensive. Back then it was like 20 bucks, now it's like 60 bucks. But you also have to imagine you get a lot of stuff for those 60 bucks. You get the base game. You get 5 free maps, so your base map, the island, and then 4 additional maps that are free, which also partly have paid DLC content on them. Then you have 4 paid DLC map, and soon a 5th one will come. So you soon have in total 10 maps you can play on, which is a lot of content. On each map you can spend several hundred hours, which means you have content for several thousand hours. If you compare this to like a full price title that is out now, this is a lot of content. But we also need to talk about the negative things. ARK still has a lot of bugs, and I think everyone who plays ARK knows that. And that is also, with these kind of games, something you need to get used to. Every game in this genre will always have certain bugs you need to live with. If you see how far the developers are pushing the game engine and how far they are pushing the game mechanics, certain bugs will show up. Certain bugs cannot be fixed as easy as players maybe want to. But I don't know about any game-breaking bugs that you can't avoid. For a game this size and with this amount of content, it's really surprising how stable it runs. Let's talk about the community. I talked about the community in another video before, and the community you join is very different depending on what kind of gameplay you have. If you join an official server, you need to get used to a little bit of anarchy because the official servers are not actively moderated. They just get moderated if someone reports another player, and then you will have someone joining and, well, taking action. But usually they are not actively moderated. So the tone on the servers is usually a little bit more rough, and you might witness some toxicity on the servers. That is completely normal. And here it does not even make a difference if you play PvE or PvP, just because it's like not moderated. People will overstep boundaries. And you need to be aware of this if you want to join. Maybe if you want to join with your children, official servers is probably not the very best spot to go to. If you want to enjoy your gameplay with friends, I would suggest you to just host your own server or just rent your own server and have like a private game with your friends. If you want to play PvP though, I would suggest you to go to a server that is very populated, because otherwise you will not have anyone to PvP with, and then you will be stuck in a kind of PvE gameplay, which is not something that you really want to have if you want to PvP. So depending on what kind of server you're joining, you will have different communities, and it's up to you what kind of community you prefer and what kind of way to play you prefer. You can also join unofficial servers, unofficial PvE and PvP servers. The good thing about these is that you can meet new people, and you can choose a server that is actively moderated by the admins. So this is some kind of alternative if you do not want to join official, or if you do not want to just play on your own or just with your friends, but you want to get to know new people. After my almost 9,000 hours in the game, I get asked a lot, how do I keep the game interesting for me? And this is something I really get asked a lot, and I want to give you my thoughts about this. ARK is a survival game, so surviving and struggling with surviving is a main part of the game, especially in the early game. In order to enjoy the game and to get the motivation to do things in the game, try to work for your progress. It is part of the game, and you destroy your own game experience if you join a server and after 5 minutes you ask if you can have dinos or if you can have tools or equipment or resources. Because the problem is, there will always be one bored player who's sitting in his overstuffed, overstocked base and who will give out endgame stuff to new players. There will always be this one player. In the first moment it will be super handy for you and you will be super happy, but you will notice very quickly that the more you get for free and the less you have to work for something, the less you want to work for stuff. And that's the point where you destroy the game for yourself. Because you need the motivation and you need the accomplishment of reaching something on your own in order to keep going. From my experience, it's almost guaranteed that a player who gets a lot of free stuff from another player will probably leave the server after 1 or 2 weeks because he thinks the game is too easy or the game is too boring or he has nothing to do, because he skipped all these steps that should have kept him going and that should have given him some play content. And if you are this one rich player who gives out endgame stuff, who gives out free stuff, please be aware that you are spoiling and destroying those people's games. Even if you mean it well, and even if you want to help people, it is a survival game, and you take away the survival part from that certain player and you take away the game experience he maybe wants to have or maybe needs in order to beat the game, and you take away memories. Like if you imagine your very first dino that you tamed yourself, the accomplishment, even if it was just a raptor, even if it was just a dodo, and the way you worked up in tiers your first Rex, your first Giga. If you are giving away, let's say, a Giga to a new player, you're taking away all these accomplishments from this player. And those are moments he will never experience, which is super sad. Because those are the moments that we remember in our game. I remember my first Rex. I remember my first Giga. I mean, I remember my very, very first dino that I tamed, which was a Pteranodon. I still remember it to this day. I tamed this Pteranodon on day 1 that I joined the server. Back then, flyers were still early game stuff. So I tamed this Pteranodon. I named it Sir Hammerlock, and I was so proud. So please don't be that guy that spoils it for the newbies. Let them have their experiences, let them have their memories, help them if they need help, but don't give them everything for free. Survival games require you to be able to organize yourself. And that is often a problem with people because self-organization is not something a lot of people are used to. If you want to reach something in a game, it is good if you inform yourself or research a little bit what you can accomplish in the game. And then you just make a list and write down what you need to do in order to reach this goal. And I'll just point you to my Notion video where I tell you about how we organize our tribe with Notion. So maybe you get some inspiration from this. If you organize yourself, it also takes away this moment where you log in and you're like, I don't know what I should do today. I don't know what to do today. And you also accomplish a little bit more and a little bit faster because you always know what needs to be done in order to reach your goal. But one important step, and that's really important, ARK is usually called like the big grind for people. And a lot of people like this big grind in the game. But ARK is not your job. ARK is not something you feel like you're logging in and you're working. ARK should be fun. Enjoy yourself on the ARK events. Enjoy yourself with friends. Do challenges. Tame and breed animals that you like and that you enjoy, and not only because your tribe needs them, but also because you like them. And in PvP, don't try to take this game too serious. I have seen a lot of bad things happening in PvP, like people are doxing, people are harassing. Like, don't destroy your life over a game. Don't get yourself into trouble over a game. It's not worth it. And now, is the game worth buying in 2020? If you start ARK right now, and if you buy ARK right now, you probably have the best entry into the game because you already have access to all the information and resources that are available out there. Those were not available in the beginning. We had to learn everything ourselves and we had to discover everything in the games ourselves. You now have access to all the information and therefore you have a very good start into the game. Since 2015, the game got optimized over and over and over again. And you have content for several thousand hours. You still get new events. You will still get new DLCs with a lot of new content, and also on top you have a giant modding community. So if you get bored with vanilla ARK, you can just set up a server, install a lot of fun mods and change the game mechanics so that it doesn't even feel like the same game anymore. So if you ask me as a OG player, if you want to say so, buying ARK in 2020 is worth it because you have a lot of content for a fairly small price. But be careful, because once you start playing ARK, you might not have time for other games anymore because ARK requires all your time. I hope my opinion and my video helped you a little bit in finding out if you want to buy ARK or not. If you want to leave me your opinion, just write it in the comments. I'm very curious what you think about it. And I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye!